Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our panel debate on carbon footprinting. Will consumers ever care about carbon, and can brands make a difference on climate change? Can I ask you first of all to make sure you have turned off your mobile phones? Thank you very much. I'll introduce the panel. To my far right is Tom DeLay, who is Chief Executive of the Carbon Trust, who of course are hosting this evening. Jo Kenrick, Rita Clifton of Interbrand, she's the Chairman of Interbrand, is alongside Tom. Dax Lovegrove is from WWF, he's Head of Business and Industry Relations. I'm Jenny Murray. Jo Kenrick is from the Marketing Society Mayday Alliance, and Ruth Girardet is from Tesco PLC. She's the Corporate Responsibility Director. The way the evening will work is we'll hear from each of the panel members, and then the floor is yours to pose questions, make comments, give us your experiences. So let me first of all ask Tom DeLay to kick things off.
Good. Jenny, thanks very much indeed. Yeah, my job this evening really is to introduce very quickly the topic and maybe the work the Carbon Trust has done in getting us thus far, and then open it up very much to debate, because I think we're at a point of inflection. It really isn't clear to us whether this is going to go and become something very big, very important to brands and to consumers, or whether it's going to be a nice thing that was kind of interest at a certain point in time. And we very much believe it should be the former, not the latter. To recap very briefly, because many of you might be thinking, what's the Carbon Trust got to do with any of this? We almost fell into this debate by accident. Several years ago, we decided that we needed to understand the life cycle creation of embodied carbon in products and services as a way of understanding where opportunities would lie to reduce the carbon footprint of products and services through energy efficiency gains that one can make through the supply chain, and ultimately by promoting organisations willing to actually develop lower carbon products and services from scratch. So life cycle analysis was kind of the rather academic start to all of this, and we commissioned quite a lot of work looking at a number of different sectors, using a number of different approaches to try and understand how you can apply life cycle analysis to embodied carbon in products and services. We did all that, and we ended up with some really interesting findings. They've been published in a number of reports. We looked at everything from newspapers to shampoo to crisps, famously. And we then sort of said, well, what next? And the what next for us was very much trying to take what had become an experience base and operationalize it. One thing that we realized is that life cycle analysis is, in theory, quite straightforward. It becomes difficult when you try to apply it in a robust way consistently from one product to the next. So it's the operationalizing that was the challenge. In doing that, we realized that really there were no standards out there that seemed to be doing the job. A lot of people were talking about standards for doing this, but nobody was doing them. So we tried to almost create a big tent, a virtual space where everybody with an input to creating standards for embodied carbon in products and services could work together. And ultimately, along with DEFRA acting as the government sponsor, ourselves acting as the co-sponsor, and the British Standards Institute, we ended up developing and launching PAS 2050, which to this day is the only standard available globally for measuring the carbon footprint of products and services. And it's something that I think we should all be very proud of. It's something that came out of the UK, and many people here have been involved in the development of that standard. We then took it one stage further, because we kind of at this point had got to the point with our customers where they were saying, well, look, all this is fine. We understand where the opportunities to reduce the carbon footprint lie, but we'd like to share this more broadly with our stakeholders, with our customers and so on, because we think there's real value in being able to articulate that we're serious about carbon reduction. It's not just talk, it's actually rooted in the very heart of our customer proposition through the products and services that we sell. And so we realized that actually developing some form of mark that could go onto a product to identify carbon reduction and a commitment to reduce carbon was really important. And we started off with a little thing that looked a bit like a Pac-Man, or so said the negative press. Most other people thought it was rather good, but never mind. It wasn't absolutely clear. It was a big C for carbon with a downward arrow in it. And eventually we moved forward from that, and on the basis of research that we did, we've ended up now with essentially a carbon footprint. The footprint has become so much a mark of carbon footprint that it has become very easy to understand and to explain to people. So that became the thing that we are now working with. So essentially we then launched the carbon footprint as a label that is now on about £2.5 billion worth of products that are being sold on an annual basis. That's really quite a lot. And the big question is, what next? Well, before we go to the what next, why does it matter? Just two very quick questions I think we should reflect on. Why does it matter? Tackling climate change is incredibly difficult. It's easier to say that climate change is the greatest environmental challenge that we face, and the science still very much underpins that despite ClimateGate. But what do you actually do about it is altogether more challenging. And awful lot of people, businesses and individuals and consumers, turn around and say, well, it's kind of government's job to sort this one out. Well, that was all fine, and up to a point, the rhetoric around governments will collectively take action to regulate and to incentivise and to do all the things governments should do worked fine until the bubble of Copenhagen blew up just before Christmas, and suddenly an awful lot of people have turned around and said, well, hang on a minute, it may well be that governments acting together is simply never going to get us there. So what next? And I would put forward the thesis that actually the consumers are the people who ultimately will drive a lower carbon society, will help us understand what they want to do in terms of building a lower carbon lifestyle built around lower carbon products and services. So consumer engagement is absolutely fundamental, because without the consumer's engagement, at the end of the day, businesses are going to be very reluctant to invest in lower carbon products and services. It just isn't in their interest unless they see a clear consumer demand. So what do consumers need, in our view at least? I suppose the nirvana at the end of the day is to see carbon as a currency, something that they can put value on as clearly as you can put monetary value on a financial currency, or you can see value in maybe the calorie counting that you would see on products, and so on and so on. Carbon somehow needs to be a currency. The issue, of course, is that most currencies are far better understood than we understand carbon today, and they also have an immediacy in terms of what they mean to consumers that, again, we don't have in terms of carbon today at all. So that's the case for why this is important and why this matters. Interestingly, I haven't actually mentioned the consumer at all and what the consumer wants or needs. And there is a big flaw, therefore, in the whole proposition, which is that unless consumers really want this, unless we can stimulate that want, at the end of the day, we're probably wasting our time. I mean, interestingly, I've just got a couple of figures here from some market research that we did quite recently. So this is interesting. This is post-Copenhagen. This is post-ClimateGate. So the most sceptical view probably of climate change and carbon reduction that we've had for some time. But it still basically suggests that consumers are inclined to support this as becoming something that really matters to them. A quarter of people say it's not just carbs, but carbon that now influences their shopping habits. Interesting. I wouldn't have put it that high myself. 86% of consumers want their favourite brands to help combat the threat of climate change by reducing their carbon footprint. Very consistent with research that we've done over a number of years that do say that consumers expect businesses to play more of an active role in helping them reduce carbon. Almost half, 43%, are actively seeking information about the carbon impact of the products they buy, and more than half, or just over half, 52%, would be more loyal to a brand if they could see at a glance they were taking steps to reduce their carbon footprint. So just some early indications there, but really quite recent, that consumers, they might be at least open to the argument and debate. I think spontaneous, I really want that, I'm going to demand that, I expect that of the leading brands, is probably some way away. That's a personal view, and I'll be very interested to see really what the debate yields this evening and what the views are of other people on the panel. So I've probably talked quite long enough. I have a chance hopefully to answer some questions later on. Jenny, back to you.